By the way, people who are watching this podcast
Mhm.
who've seen the previous episodes, I've seen them too. They're in Amaringa. I'm very American. This is going to be in English, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
I'm
gonna be
sorry.
all right. Yeah.
Or you just have closed captions on. Both will work.
Uh, 3, 2, 1. Abel Theodros, thanks so much for being here in my podcast and willing to share your experience. First, I will, I guess, describe who you are for people who are listening. So Abel Theodros is a computer science graduate from the University of California. He did internship at Roku Inc. for about like 4 months, and started working as, I'm guessing, full-time at Google starting this March 2022. And he is a full stack developer. And he's here to share us, I guess, the experience and things like that with programming and getting a job at big companies like Google. So first, I want to start with like the easy question. So like when you get the job at Google, how was like your and your family reaction?
The reason why I'm like smart, by the way, people who are watching this podcast who've seen the previous episodes, I've seen them too. They're in Amaringa. I'm very American. This is going to be in English, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's gonna
sorry.
be all right. Yeah.
Hopefully, your parents just made sure, like, they made sure you knew both languages, or you just have closed captions on. Both will work. But to answer your question, I was actually in Ethiopia when I got the job. Yeah, it was January of this year. I graduated in December of 2020. And what had happened was I was there, as you usually go back to Ethiopia, as for a wedding. It was my cousin's wedding. And I was staying with my father, a couple of my aunts and uncles, and we had this big Airbnb. It was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice place, but that's the point. I had been interviewing for about a month at Google. They sent me assessments. I had a phone interview. I had a decently sized interview later on that we can talk about later on if you want to have questions regarding that.
Mhm.
But when it came to it, was about, because of different time zones, so obviously they didn't know. It was about 12. It was about midnight when I got like an email, and I saw like Google, just big words like announcement, next stage. Basically, what I was told at this point was, if you get another email that seems positive, like, oh, you're going forward with the interview process, it means you've got the job. They'll figure out teams for you later, but you've got the job. And so I tell my dad, like, I see the email on my phone. It's like, I didn't read it. I was like, I got it. God bless him. He went downstairs. Wake up. Wake up.
Oh.
Wake up. Everybody's door.
Oh,
Set
no.
up in his house. Everyone comes to his room. I go to his room, and we're all looking at my phone like it's like a pot of gold, like treasure. But we don't even know I got the job yet. So we do the Abasha thing.
Yeah.
My auntie just like, God bless her. My auntie Tananya. She's like, okay, everyone grab your hands, just pray. And I was thinking, nah. Just like, we all pray for a bit, and then they just the entire time I'm just thinking, if I don't get this is gonna be. I just woke these people up for no reason. It was just I feel so bad. What if I messed it up? Because I didn't know if I like did well or not. Because you never feel 100% confident, especially for a company like Google. So I open my email and it says, basically, we want to continue the process, which means which translates to you got the job. So I just looked at them. I said, I got it. And as you can imagine,
yeah. And a little right. Yeah.
Just prayers, hugs. It was, everyone went to bed happy that night.
Oh man, yeah, that's
it was
very awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a very long way.
No, that's all right. It's like I'm kind of getting like goosebumps too, because like as I really like kind of like that culture of where it's like everybody gets excited for you. Like it doesn't matter if they are like, even if they're just like a friends that like 1 hour ago, they will be like very excited for you. So
the aunties who are not really aunties, but they're like your mom's best friends. So like they're basically your aunties.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
my father, after like that day, he basically he could tell people before I could. He would just announce it to everybody. People like he would run. That same day he ran downstairs and told my cousin who was on the phone with her man. It's like he can't look at it. It's just like no, I can go downstairs and tell her myself. He told everyone at the wedding found out. Like before, like how Michelle weddings, there are a few weeks. So like over like all the ceremonies, people found out, and it's just like I appreciate it, but now it's just I can't mess this job up now.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on you now. Huh?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but it's good to see them happy.
Yeah, for sure. It's like same with my parents, like brothers and sisters. Sometimes I feel like they get more excited than like me when something happens, which feels nice. But that's a good story. If you could like explain what full stack programming is, and also like how you get into that. Because like computer science is like a very, very like big field. There's like tons of stuff, and yeah, exactly.
Galactic.
Yeah. It's like everything has depths and it goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, what was it for you? Like, where you decided like I'm gonna be full stack programmer?
So basically, when I went into university, I originally went in. As like I wanted to be a CS major, and I wasn't originally. I didn't have enough credits from high school to like qualify, so I had to work my way into the major. It took a while, but when I got into it, they mostly taught us like back-end software. And what back-end software is, it's basically one half of full stack. The other half is front end, and I'll explain both. Back-end is essentially, to put it in layman's terms, is the what you don't see when you're on a website. All the stuff that goes in the background to make sure the website works, whether it uses resources from other different databases, from other websites, from input from the user that they collect from the front end, and it basically does whatever it is, whatever the developers and team wanted to do in order to provide the resources for the website. For example, like the backend for like weather.com, I don't have access to their code. Like you'd assume that they're collecting, that they're retrieving like recent data from like weather satellites, and like organizations involved in like measuring change in tide or all that. Like that's what they do. And the front end, say also weather.com, is what you see on the website. It's like all the designs, like how they're able to get different types of like moons and like the text, and how they're able to update it every day. That's the front end. That's what you see and what you interact with. And what full stack is basically saying, oh, I work on both of these. Most people usually isolate themselves on one or the other, and there's also smaller like subsections in each of these fields of development. But being a full stack developer saying is like, I have experience in all of these fields, and I can apply it to pretty much anything. It allows for more flexibility and lets you try different things, which is why I wanted to get into it. And because I'm early in my career, I just wanted to be able to experiment, try different things, and not feel locked down. Because usually when you're in one of these fields, like I think you can test it, once you're in one of these fields, it's usually like any job you get afterwards, any project you get afterwards, is usually building off that one thing. Back in most of when we started in school, and I took a front-end class. So basically, it was like, okay, let's just build a website. Here's some information, build a website. And here's the languages how to use it. Here's how to write in HTML, JS, JavaScript, like vanilla like front end, straightforward stuff. And then they get into more in-depth stuff, like here's what IDOM is. Here's how to properly test your code, so and so. And then I kind of realized I liked being able to like have full. This makes me sound like a control freak. I like having a say in everything.
Yeah.
Like I like being able to say, okay, so like this goes there, that goes there, everything connects. I like seeing how things connect. Like I see how from the front end and the back end, and being able to kind of like control that process and see how it works, and be able to like build a feature that like works on both sides. The whole process seemed interesting to me. And then when they tell you you don't have to pick one or the other, why not do both? I figured, yeah, you're right. Why not do both? Which is why I ended up choosing to do it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me because like, personally, I want to see kind of like something like visual when I do
Mhm.
like programming because like, for example, you do all of the backing, but then it's really hard to show that to other people like programmers or non-programmers, like what you did. So if you have a really cool, visual and stuff like the UI,
Mhm.
and then I guess it gets people interested and also like you'll be kind of like proud of like what you did. Like, I
Mhm.
guess it's like much easier to show that. Uh, Leading to the second question, you worked at internship at Roku, which is
Mhm.
kind of now becoming like a very famous company for I guess boxes for TVs,
Mhm.
right? And like how were you able to get that internship, and like what kinds of experience did you got from working there?
I originally applied for the internship. It was in my junior year. It was going into my senior. My going into my senior year was that summer.
Mhm.
So that'll be 2019, 2020, I believe. This is a part of, if anyone watching this is like starting, it's like freshman or sophomore in engineering, and like they hate the internship process, well, not the internship process, the interview process for like internships. It's not going to get, I don't want to, let me rephrase it. I want to say it's not going to
Okay.
get better. This whole thing you're probably going through, which I'm guessing is a lot of like practice questions, probably like a lot of leak code, cracking the code interview, like reading that book, like these are all, you should do these things,
Mhm.
but it's good. Unless you like strike gold, it's gonna take some time. And then I speak that on experience because it took me months to get the company to like pay attention to notice me. It took a
Mhm.
while, and then I had to reach out on like multiple different online websites. Like I went on Handshake, LinkedIn, like so many, and I honestly can't remember how. Like I applied to maybe 40 plus companies, and just
Yeah.
someone sent me coding assessments, and I would do well, and maybe sometimes I even hear back. Sometimes I would get a phone interview or like a video call. It didn't work out, and then thankfully one of the Roku like recruiters reached out to me, and they said, "Okay, hi, we like what we see on your profile. Can we schedule a call with you?" And I thought, okay, first off, is this real?
Mm.
Because you
Yeah.
never know. But it's like, oh, like it's like the emails was like at Roku.com. Just okay, so somebody either put a lot of work into like this lie, or this is the real thing.
Yeah. As long as they don't ask you for money, that'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is like we want to make sure it's the paycheck. What's your social security number again?
Yeah. Yeah. What about your
Exactly.
credit card?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bill, that's ABLE. It's like
Yeah.
if you're gonna steal my identity, do it right at least.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry for interrupting, but like,
no.
yes, have you seen this kind of like ad where it was a kind of like a big hack where they say it's a website, so it just
Mm-hmm.
pop up says you can't check if your credit card is stolen here. So people get kind of like interested in like putting their information. That was so kind of like, I guess you could say that was a genius thing because that's like
I
a
mean,
psychology play, you know.
here's the thing. I respect the hustle of like especially people like out here trying to like we should have scammed that to get some money. Like I respect like the ambition that goes into something like that,
Yeah.
but I just feel bad for everybody who clearly just wanted to make sure they weren't getting scammed.
I know,
Like
right?
they wanted to like they were worried about security, and then they
Yeah.
had this man who just like
Mm.
took advantage of that, and that makes me feel bad. But
Yeah, yeah. I
uh,
mean,
I don't.
yeah, yeah. It's
I'm impressed, but also sad.
yeah, it's kind of like a dark comedy of where,
Yeah,
especially if you're not a programmer, that's terrible
yeah.
but funny. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, it's all good. So I'm trying to remember back. This is a while ago. It was only like 2 3 years ago, but like I think like anyone on planet Earth understands like this past few years that kind of feels like blended and messy and
Oh, for
the
sure.
whole thing. Yeah. If I remember correctly, I wasn't the only one she reached out to, the recruiter. It was like a quick 15-minute call. It went well. I made sure to mention, she asked me about like the projects that I had worked on. And I've recently done some stuff in my senior design class I was able to bring up. I mentioned how much I enjoyed working with my team, how much I liked them and appreciated them. And she like noted that. She appreciated the fact that, oh, you have somebody, you're someone who likes being a part of a team. You like some like who enjoys that thing. It doesn't hold resentment or control. Later or not, I would become a control freak later. At this point, I was still fair. I'm not actually a control freak. I just it's a joke. No, but like and so that was a quick call, and then she put me on a bigger call a little bit longer that had about pretty much broke down how this whole process of like the interview process will be like. And I believe there was a decent number of other potential interns there. I want to say maybe 30 or 40 or so. It might have been more. I believe they had multiple sets of these. So what they did was they basically like explained what the process was going to be, who to talk to, what the whole thing, and then eventually that would come, and then we would go to the actual interviews, which would involve me speaking with some engineers and answering just general like behavioral questions and a little bit technical. So my first set of interviews was mostly behavioral, and then going forward, I had some technical questions here and there. They were not necessarily too difficult. I want to say I think they were more gauging whether or not like you were like a good person to work with, more so than they were like, how much do you know about like system design, or like how much are you up to date on like C++ 17? Like they didn't really care about that. They wanted to make sure that you were someone that like was a good person to work with. And I ended up actually not getting it because apparently I was assigned to work with the way the internships work is that they basically like the manager like is the last person that gives you kind of the green light to join their team. And apparently I was another engineer, another potential intern who was in the running and ended up going to them, but they wanted to keep me around, so they had to like pool around to see who had an available spot for the summer. And like, thank Christ, like another lady was like nice enough to like reach out to me and basically say, "This is not exactly your field. How would you feel about coming in and just like working on something involving like embedded systems?" And I had some experience in that. It wasn't like the thing I wanted to do, but I had experience. I was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a shot. And then I joined in the entire, and you know, within a week, I like got a confirmation and I got an offer, and that basically is how that happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Like I also had difficulty getting internship while I was in college. And like as you said, like you're not expected to be, I guess, experts on anything at that time. So I guess that's a good advice where you prepare more on like working well with a team, like contributing something, and I guess being actually like a student where you're like eager to learn and things like that. I think that would be a great point for upcoming programmers. So like, continuing to that, so like for Google, like having goal of where you want to work at Google, or you had like kind of like a group of companies that you want to work in, and you got that opportunity.
I think after Roku, because I didn't, I'm comfortable saying this now. They didn't give me a return offer, which is like, I know it's like, I'm like, well, usually they do. It's like, well, a lot of factors came in. I don't want to say that's to do with like my technical skill. I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty of it all. I'm not 100% sure if I signed an NDA or not. But basically, like, they had a lot of complications in terms of like what they were on the tasks that I was assigned, like logistical ones that were like way outside my purview. So like the projects I was able to return at the end of, you know, my time there it wasn't as like plentiful as like some of my other interns, which I'm still friends with to this day, because a couple of them, they're like great people. But you know, they had more like fully fleshed out projects over the course of 3-4 months. Mine was maybe over the course of a month and a half, because that first month there's a lot of factors that came in, so I kept it from being successful. So afterwards, you know, I didn't harbor any like ill will towards them. Like I personally have like nothing but like respect and appreciation for everybody who like to like stop to like take time to like talk to me or school me on something or give me some advice or just help me through a project. But afterwards, I definitely was in a grind mentality of like, you're graduating and like you're graduating soon. Like this is your last year. You got to get a job. So I applied. I applied to like 30 something companies. I would I would send an application. Hopefully I would get like a coding. Thanks to the Roku internship, a lot of these companies were like, oh, there's something here. There's like some mark of approval. Yeah. So they were a lot more willing to comfortable with the idea of, bringing me on, even though at this time, I'm still fresh out. I'm about to be fresh out of school. I'm trying to remember. I believe there was a Discord that I had joined that basically gave notifications whenever new job postings were listed. I can give you like a link that you can give to your users if you want.
Okay.
So basically, it will give you notifications whenever like a new company, like a new job listing for like a big tech company posted, and like there'd also be like there's also additional information like how much like people could post like how much their offers were and compare and contrast to the differences are. But I saw it listing for Google, and I thought I was kind of on a losing streak at that point. But I was like, we'll give it a shot. So I sent in my resume, didn't think anything of it. A few weeks later, I get back and I send you an assessment, and I'm just like, yay!
Yeah. First step.
Yeah, first step. So I do the assessment, it goes well. And then I think, okay, well, maybe they just went easy on me. And then I get called that, we want to like, push you to like the bigger interview. And this is like the one I think almost every like Googler like will tell you is like the big one. It's a 5-hour interview. 5 interviews over the course of 5 hours. One's behavioral, 4 coding. And so basically you just basically grind through them all. Thankfully, because it was over quarantine, it was like that mid period of like fall 2020, 2021, where like people were still going on. I was on campus at this time, but the interview was virtual. Most people were in Google. They go to the Google campuses and they actually interview in person. Mine was over basically Zoom.
Okay.
So I went through the questions one by one, and I just pushed as hard as I could to like provide answers and just do as best as I could. And this is very, very vague. It's probably more specific. I tried to like enunciate and explain everything that I was doing to like my interviewer to make sure that like they knew that I was thinking of the solution. I wasn't just spacing out, and I also wanted to make sure they understood what I was working on. So like they could always step in and offer advice, which a lot of them did. I think that's one thing I appreciate about Google is that from what I've seen of like the workers, fellow engineers, they want to see you succeed. It's not a very like competitive like feeling. I mean, there are some people who take a bit more pride in those in their work, but no one's like real like aggro against each other. So like they'll help the interns out and like support you. And if you show that you're positive and not letting things like go wrong, it works out. Some things did go wrong. I didn't answer every question perfectly. I didn't. Okay. But like what I showed and what I can provide, like my basic understanding, or at least basic understanding of like algorithm data structures, as well as like my ability, my soft skills, were enough to show them, okay, there's something here. And then I believe another thing about Google, they take their time. They take their time. I didn't find out about this about my offer, which I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, until like I'd already graduated. I was well into graduation. Like I took the interview in November. I didn't find out until January.
Considering how many people applied there,
yeah,
kind of makes sense.
Yeah, of course. They're taking their time. I'm pretty sure they have a committee board that like goes through everything, so that they read their review. So
who knows? There might be a person listening to this who has upcoming interview, and I think those tips will for sure help them. I heard you mentioning the cracking the code interview like book, which is like really helpful. Like what other books or tools you used when you were like preparing for the behavioral and technical?
When it comes to the behavioral exam, I think it's good to have some stories of you working through a problem and solving it. Because at the end of the day, what they really want, they'll teach you everything you need to know on the job. Because every team is different. You could be well versed and experienced in C++, but end up on a team that does Java. Like that happens. That happens to people. Like I went in the full stack with more experience in like C++ and Python. I'm doing JavaScript right now. I'm doing like front end stuff. It wasn't my like my number one thing, but I learned, I adapted, and like that's something, you know, that's not even in Google. That's just working in tech, period. So going into this, I think a lot of people have like, oh, there's like classes you can take, like not classes, but like you can buy like
Courses.
online, like online courses, interview questions. There's a couple of resources that I will 100% recommend. There's a YouTube channel called Back to Back Suite. His it's spelled like a back number 2 back suite. Go find him on YouTube. He does in-depth breakdowns of every common algorithm question that's shown in tech interviews, whether it be dynamic programming, binary trees, recursion, all of it. He covers it, and he covers it a well job. He's also Abisha, so you know, shout outs to him.
Oh, yeah.
I believe his name is Baron.
Okay.
Like if you're watching this and you're looking for like a good resource for like understanding algorithm questions, I would highly recommend giving him a shot. Also, I would say Cracking the Code Interview is a book that, you know, if you're in CS, you probably already heard of. Look it up. There's PDFs available online. You don't have to buy it. If you want a physical copy, I had a friend who's also CS who bought a physical copy because he likes, you know, going over it with like a highlighter and a pen, and like I'm like adding post-its and like kind of breaking it down. Like that's how we was able to like digest the information. For me, I just straight read it. I just straight read it and it's digest like what it was trying to tell me. You don't have to like read it cover to cover like 30 times like you probably hear some people doing. It's not necessarily bad, but I wouldn't say it's the most like, you won't get the most results from that unless like repetition reading is your thing. I would say just in my experience, what you should do is just make sure like have a list of things that you have a list of like the fundamentals of all things involved in like preparing for an interview. So know your data structures, know your algorithms, like all that. Like have a bit of understanding when it comes to heap memory and dynamic programming and recursion. You don't need to be a genius at it. You just have to be able to show that like, you have an understanding of like the fundamentals. And then just use these books and use like online resources like Back to Back Suite or like the website LeetCode provides you interview questions that you can like practice and like work on. Just use these to basically like expand your skill set or just like reaffirm your understanding in those main topics and concepts. Like don't focus on it. It doesn't matter if you pass every single interview like a question on LeetCode. When it comes to the actual interview, if you don't know, if you don't show that you're able to like communicate these skill sets and explain the basic concepts back to the recruiter, then they're not going to hire you. I've seen that happen multiple times. It's happened to me multiple times. I've had practice interviews, and I solved the problem. I didn't explain why I did it. I didn't really like think of it. I just figured, okay, here's this. How would you do it? It's like, oh, okay, I could just do and polynomial time, O(n) squared. And it's like, okay, great. How did you do that? Explain why. Why didn't you explain it? Like, thankfully, this wasn't an actual interview, so I didn't lose it. I didn't lose like a potential job. But like they were harsh on me, and I appreciated their harshness. It was necessary. When it comes to the actual interview process, I believe I had about roughly I had a month before the interview. I had a month. So in that time, I would devote a little bit of, this was also my last quarter of school. So finals approaching. I've been doing well so far, but obviously you did pass classes in order to graduate. So even though I had selected some like lighter courses, like I was able to like put some GE courses to the side for this exact reason, so I could have some breathing room, which did help. Which I would also recommend if you're in your senior junior year, you're looking to I guess senior year probably junior year probably like bulking up on like a lot of upper div classes. But if you only try and save this one or two like GE like basic courses like a history class or like an English class, something you can like push aside for as long as possible until like your last quarter. It would have a lot more fun. Also have a lot more time to study and review for interviews instead of spending all your time doing like discrete structures.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the actual interview process, like prepping for it, it was just devoting a little bit of time every day into this solving coding questions and reading over these books and watching these videos and making sure that like what I did was I opened a note on my notes app. It's like a checkbox of all the basic concepts. So it was like, see if I could still have it. It's Sorry.
No,
Just
that's
check yeah, coding things to revise. So I wrote down, okay, so for data structures, I'd also recommend anybody watching this who actually is a programmer who's looking into, or like CS student looking into like getting an internship or a job, know these things, at least a basic understanding. At least you should, at the very least, you should be able to define these things and provide the basic concepts. For data structures, you've got graphs, vectors, heaps, queues, stacks, array lists, hash tables, linked lists, and trees. For algorithms, you've got quick sort, binary search, merge sort, breadth first search, and depth first search. And for concepts, you've got dynamic programming, bit manipulation, stack memory, big O time, big O space, recursion, and heap memory. You don't have to know everything there. You don't have to feel like you're a genius in all these fields. If you are, congratulations, you already got the job.
Yeah.
But having a basic understanding of the majority of these points, plus like some experience in working through problems and solving them, understanding like the kind of flow of working through these interviews, because it comes with practice. You have to get used to, the call and response that comes with like tech interview questions. They're not like regular like job interviews where you basically tell them about what you've done and you say what you can provide. You're showing them, and you have to show that you're basically giving them like a little bit of a perspective into how you can like work when they decide to give you a desk and a computer.
I think also so like when I was in college, like even if I took the college courses, I still need to review all of those coding interview books if you are solving a problem, and then to kind of like integrate what you learn to the problem itself. It's very like difficult. It needs its own practice. So they can try to be perfect at like describing what they actually are in their like own words, I guess.
Also, one more thing, and this is probably the biggest advice I could give: get in a study group. Not even just like classes. Collaboration is like the number one most important thing I can recommend. Because if you don't know it, somebody in your team probably will. And if they don't know it, you both can figure it out together, and it becomes a lot more easier to do, because if you're both putting in your work into it, you'll be able to like figure out a way for you both to understand quicker.
Yeah.
Make a club on your campus, specifically like working through like tech questions. Just like go online, leak code, find a random question, have a problem, have a bunch of people trying to figure it out, and try to explain it to each other and work through the solution. Do that regularly. Just quiz each other. Practice. That hold each other accountable. That is the best chance of making sure all of you succeed.
Yeah,
that is like
100%. For my freshman year, I joined this computer science club called the ACM. It was in our college, and that's where I learned how to kind of like really program C++. Like they would teach us C++ at the course in like class and stuff, but actually like to program, I learned like so much just by going one time a week in that club. Did you get a tour of like Google before you start the job?
No, I didn't. I never got, because I started off remote. I was introduced to Google through a process called ECI, which basically is early career immersion. So if you're just starting out, if you're new grad, this is basically their way of kind of introducing you to the world of like professional development. Okay. What that workflow is like, what technologies Google typically uses. It basically kind of, and they also give you like projects to work on to kind of gauge how your understanding and your capabilities. I mean, you got the job. You're not losing it afterwards. I just originally I was assigned to the Sunnyvale office here in California, and I just looked up, okay, what does a Google Sunnyvale office look like? It was insane. It was just how the hell can a middle class like family, like I don't even care they're white. How could they afford this? It's just like no, it's that extravagant. They're like, these are like grown adults in like professional in a professional capacity. One of us, I don't know about respected, like one of the biggest companies on the planet. And there's a slide. There's a full on like slide that goes down multiple floors. They have a sushi bar on campus. They have like, I didn't even realize they had free food. They have like multiple, like not even like little cafeterias, like full on restaurants that you can reserve and get food at that are free. Like it was so extravagant and just it took me step. That's when that was my parents had like their reaction when I told them the job, that whole like that was their thing. This was mine. I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw a documentary, and that was actually what I was about to ask. So like they would show they have a personal chef, and there's like free food everywhere, and like I don't think you even need like a house or apartment to just live there. If you get free food, free shower.
Before COVID, I believe there was talks of creating like bunks for engineers to live in, like Google sponsored bunks, and like they could stay at, because like the offices themselves provide everything. They provided food, they provided laundry, they provided events you could go to. There were clubs you could sign up for any hobby. You could, if you play basketball, you play basketball. Like bowling. There's some buildings have movie theaters. Buildings have places you can play video games. There's showers. You really have no reason. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's really no reason to leave the campus. You don't really have to. Like personally, I'm not a big fan of the idea of living at work, but the fact that they have that option is, I'm sure, good for a lot of people who just want that stability and the easy access to just and anything that they could possibly need.
Okay, yeah. Like I also, I guess, agree with you where I don't like to sleep where I work. Because like it feels so strange. Even now, like I have an option of where I could work remotely or go to the office, and like I choose going to the office because it's like, first of all, it's change of scenery, talking to and meeting your coworkers and like working with them. I feel like that has a lot of value. But then by the end of the day, I want to go to like somewhere different, and then just like take a break and then like restart my day that way. I want to ask you about resume. I think, which is like a kind of like a major part of you getting the interview itself. Personally, I kind of like reviewed and edited my resume like more than 100 times. I even like had 2 or 3 different versions, and then like try to submit that and to see which one the recruiters react to. So I want to hear like your experience with that. Like, how did your, I guess, resume change, or like any tips you have for someone who wanna make their resumes better too?
It's straightforward, it's clean. Just make sure. I actually had a thing where something happened to me recently. A friend of mine from high school reached out and asked me if I could refer him on Google, because he went to school in, I believe, Chicago, and he got his degree in CS. I was like, sure, I'll refer you. I'm not sure how far like my work can go because I just started, but I'll give him a shot. I'll send his name out. But then I asked for his resume so I can take a look at it first. And it was not like in the condition ready to. It was not in the right condition to go forward. Just to say clearly, he had repeated the same information multiple times. And like his skills and experience, his like explanation of who he is, including information that was already present in the resume. There was a lot of repeated information. So if I had any advice for writing a resume, so if you're still starting out, like education should probably go on top because it lets people know like where you come from, what you're doing. You can put your GPA on there, but you don't have to. Yeah, unless you have like a 3.5 or higher, it's not necessarily like the most like shocking thing. They're not. I'm not gonna say that having a high GPA is gonna guarantee you a job. I didn't have like above 3.5 GPA graduating college, But like if you want to put it on there, you can put it on there. Honestly, it does. At that point, it's an aesthetic choice to you. But for the rest of it, just put down like your skills. Put down how proficient you are in each of those skills. Like how well you are. Like if you can't decide if you want to say like if you put down like all your skills in one list, I was like, oh good, I'm good at C++, Java, Python, TypeScript, yada yada yada. That's great, but they're just gonna assume that you're fantastic at all of these. It's good to like just like section them up. Say, okay, these are the ones that I'm like very professional. Like, I would interview in these questions and I can work in these questions. You have like lower ones where it's just like, okay, I have some experience, familiarity in them. I can grow in these fields. I understand the basics. And then you just have the one, if you want, you can have a third section of just like, I'm currently learning these things to show that you're actively like developing. And then, and most importantly, the biggest thing on your resume, projects. You have to make sure you have projects that show that you are working beyond your classes to like provide something. Especially if you don't have any current job experience. If you don't have an internship already or a job already, you got to nail down your projects. Okay. And they don't even have to be like ones provided by the school. They can just be something you're like, half of the projects on my resume when I first started were just still things I wanted to learn for myself. Like I wanted to learn how to use like DynamoDB from Amazon, which is like a database service. It's like make a tic-tac-toe game. And a friend of mine was like, hey, we can do that. So we wrote the game and we put that on our resume. Like, hey, we made a tic-tac-toe game with DynamoDB. We put that on. So I had experience. And then I built another website and like for like I think it was like a recipe. It was like a recipe website. Like, hey, that's experience. I put that on the resume. School didn't ask us to make these things. I just wanted to learn about them, and then I put them down there to be like, okay, hey, there's something here. There's something worthwhile, and that added a bit more credibility. And once the internship came in, that helped as well. So all these little things do come together to support it, but you have to make sure you put the best foot forward that presents you, because you can have the most iron. You can prove you have experience any day of the week, but if you don't have the soft skills to present yourself, it's a wrap, honestly. That's the truth. And I feel bad for anybody who is like socially awkward or has trouble like hyping themselves up. I'm the same way, but it is something you're gonna have to learn to at least be able to like kind of like let go for at least a little bit, just so you can like show these people that like you got this, you have this job, and you're just like no one else is better for you, no one else is better for them than you, and you know it, and it's your job to let them know it without being a little, but still be humble, still don't act like you're like you know everything, but just show that like you have the skill set and you're ready to do the work.
Especially like if there is a person who get like really nervous or something, practice also will help. I guess practicing with like friends and another thing you mentioned is like listing a lot of skills. I mean, for example, like I did that also. Like I would do like skills or like C++, Java. I would even put something I just heard of and like never programmed with.
They definitely want some honesty. They want to know, like, because I don't think anyone believes when you see your resume and you see like you're written down, unless you actually can prove that you've done it. Like, let's say your like project experience like shows every single one of those like skill sets. It's best to just like focus on the ones that you can, in a moment's notice, solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I want to add that hackathons. I don't know if you ever been one. Will also like really help. That's where I kind of like programmed one of my first Android apps in one of the hackathons I went to. But then kind of got the idea, and I think it was like summer or something, when I got free time, I made a wallpaper app, and it has like different pictures that I downloaded from the internet. And I actually like posted that on Play Store and got like 50 downloads, and I think it's like $50-$60. It was like surprising, and I put that on my resume, and I remember getting a lot of questions about that. So like interviewers were like very interested with that project. So like projects like that, something that you're interested in, will always kind of like stand out.
Projects that have like had have like seen the public eye and gotten positive response, even like at a small scale. It will push you, leaps and bounds ahead of most people. Like I didn't have that, but I'm sure that would have helped. So
yeah,
it's not a requirement, but it definitely helps to like be willing to just like put a project out there and just be able to see like what an unbiased opinion looks like for us.
Especially for like companies like Google, where they get like thousands and thousands of resumes. And if I'm like, for example, if I'm the interviewer and there is like two programmers with the same everything, but then the other person has a much more project, I would definitely go for the other programmer, because like he's kind of like has personal initiative for doing the project, helpful in the real world, right? So continuing to that, I want to ask you more. Now, you've been working at Google for...
I think it'll be 5 months as of next week.
Okay, 5 months. So like, how was working at Google, and also like how was the pace? Is it like where you get tons of work and less? I guess, how was it in general?
Terrible. They work you to the bone. Pay is horrible. They make you everything you've seen is a lie. They paid and bought all those documentaries.
Yeah.
They everything, like there's no free food. There's vending machines everywhere. No,
it's all a lie.
It's awful. It's awful. They work to the bone. They're animals. It's been...
Yeah, it would be terrible like if they fire you after this podcast is online.
It's just be like, why did they tell everybody?
Yeah.
That's I'm just messing around. The absolute truth is, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I actually did like an email after this, be like, why did you go? You didn't have to go. You didn't have to say all that. It's like, I'm sorry. It's funny. I think they're okay with that. So it's basically, I've had it's been a very like gradual increase in terms of responsibility and tasks, and it's been bumpy at times, because there are times where like you have to intake a lot of information at once to really have a grasp on what exactly is going on here. Because even if you have like a decent amount of experience, if you have a good understanding of code, Google has their own way of working and developing things for like large scale projects, because they envision anything, even a starter project, to be like, this could be like $1 billion venture. So they kind of go in with like, we have to be this, everything has to be scalable, everything has to be, accessible to all, which are good things to follow. But, for a lot of people who do like little niche projects or, smaller apps, it might be a bit of okay, I didn't realize there's a lot of extra hoops I have to go through. So it's something you have to kind of like learn and adapt and grow to. But you learn to appreciate it, because with that comes a lot of collaboration. People who know more than you, have more experience than you, can give you their feedback, and you feel like more capable and confident over time. Within 5 months, I feel like I've like developed and grown a lot more in what I've done than I did for like good chunks of my time in university. Like, because I'm still learning. I don't feel like I'm done with African university. I'm still learning, and I'm done learning, and I'm just like applying my skills. Like you were talking about earlier, you have to kind of learn this stuff outside of school a lot of the time. You have to kind of just like find ways to let yourself really like develop these skills and constantly be learning. Like even when you get the job, you're still learning. You're never in a position where like I have a full grasp and understanding of everything there is to do about my job. If you ever feel like that, either you run the company or you're lying.
Nowadays, where there's like frameworks or some sort of thing like they come up with like new things almost like every day now. It's like really hard to catch up. So like, I guess to use the best tool, you gotta be learning almost like every day. And
you gotta be malleable. You gotta be knowledgeable.
Sometimes you're not allowed to talk about the projects you're working on. For example, like at Google. I guess if you are, you can like tell us, but if you are not, you can tell us something cool projects that Google is working on right now.
Here's the thing though, sometimes I don't like, I read stuff, I think that's so dope. I want to work on that team next. But then like I forget, like, wait, have they announced that yet? Am I allowed to like talk about it? So that's the thing though, like, I'm not 100%, there is something in mind that I'm not, you'll probably find out about it in some time, like sooner than later, but I don't think they've announced it yet, so I don't want to say it. But I can say what I'm working on for a little bit. What my thing is mainly involving a front-end development and like working on web components. So basically the stuff you interact with when you're on Google's website, or if you're using Google Forms or Docs, like, like the buttons, like the progress indicators, whenever you like hover over like a text, you see like a little bit of information over it. I'm kind of breaking it down.
Yeah.
Every little tiny little component you notice, like just like randomly whenever you're working on any sort of Google software, like that's essentially part of that is like my team's responsibility. And we work on updating it and maintaining it, and getting ready for future, I guess you call them installments, update like new overhauls. That's like a very, very high level breakdown of what I do right now. Also, one more time. It's like I was that whole thing before about like it like being like it like they're working us to the bone. I was kidding.
Yeah.
I was kidding. I'm not talking to the audience. I'm talking to like whoever I Google's watching this right now. I was kidding.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna help you with cutting this part out, and then just.
No, keep it in. Let's be dangerous. Let's risk it.
Yeah, one more question I forgot to ask is.
Okay, sure.
I came across your website. I think you created that website, like personal website.
No, I'm so sorry.
No, I didn't see anything bad in it. Like,
okay,
I was gonna ask, like, interviewer like asked you about that. I mean, like, if that has some kinds of like benefit.
It was never brought up in an interview, so I can't say that it's you're guaranteed to get in, but it is a good thing to practice having.
Okay.
Just having a little bit of experience in just web developments, I think is just a good skill to have, period. Like, even if you end up getting into coding as like, you know, like a side hustle, like you run making websites and you make a little money on the side. Like I have a friend who does that.
Yeah.
Having these skills and like a basic understanding of code, you can make a decent living off of it. So I would recommend knowing a bit of it. I can't say it'll definitely get you a job unless you like wrote a game. Unless you wrote like some crazy game. Like I don't think this will be enough. Like it wasn't enough for me. I had to do a bunch of other stuff.
I didn't have a personal website when I was like applying and things like that. But like sometimes recruiters do actually like Google for your name and check like what's going on, especially like social media. If you're posting a lot of party photos that might be like in question and things like that. That's why I guess I asked. But yeah, like I saw the projects you did too.
Only parties you see on my social media is like Abasha weddings. That's it.
Yeah.
Also, wait, can I one more quick thing when it comes to the whole like getting a job and coding and all that? You don't need a degree. Let me say this: a degree is nice. It'll definitely get you to people's attention, but it's not gonna like, you know, no one's gonna freak out because you have a bachelor's of science in computer science or a bachelor's of arts. What they care about is what you can do and how you present yourself. So whatever shape that takes place, whether it's like a coding academy course, like Udemy, and you like finish in a few months, you get a certificate, and you have a good understanding of how to code, that's enough for a lot of companies. But you don't even need that sometimes. Or what you need really is that you can teach yourself how to code. There's research you can do. W3schools.com. Look that up. It'll give you a breakdown of all the major languages and how to properly apply them. And it'll give you little challenges to like see if you're learning. And you can go from there. You can use LeetCode practice questions for interview stuff, but you can also spend time building projects. Like I said, projects are the most essential thing, especially if you're into CS. It's the best chance to like really let yourself just grow and flourish in that regard. Just you like, don't get too wrapped up with the idea of like you need to get like a 3.5 or higher in order to get a job at Google. You don't. Anyone tells you that, it does. If you're gonna say you need that, they just want you to get good grades because, you know, it looks good for them. In reality, for you, what you really need is to just make sure you understand what you're working on and you're willing to learn and grow. I've said that 100 times in this interview because it's the truth. It's what you actually need. Be a good person to work with. Be willing to learn and know the fundamentals. Whatever form that takes, that's up to you. Just have those three, and then you're a lock.
That's like a great point. It's like, especially nowadays, like you don't need actually like a degree. Not everybody could afford or are able to go to college. So this gives them like opportunity to like work in a great companies and places.
To anybody who's like thinking like, oh, I can't afford to go to university and I can't get a scholarship or so and so, but I want to get into this, or I can't get a job without it. Again, once more, like you have options. It's not a degree is not your only way of like getting respect, notoriety. It might be harder. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna pretend like it's gonna be easier, but if you can show that you know what you're talking about, then that's more than what most companies need, especially for just like a starting position.
Yeah.
And from there, you can just work your way up in the company, or or if you want to just like negotiate with multiple companies for offers, just show what you got, show them what you got.
Yeah, like 100%. And I have nothing to add to that. So Abel, thanks for being here and then like sharing all of those golden nuggets information for people who's trying to get into a nice companies like Google. We'll definitely next time we're gonna meet again, and it's gonna be in Amaranya, you know.
Yeah, I have to train. I have to train.
Yeah. You have a couple of months now to speak fluent Amharic.
All right.
Yeah.
I love a challenge. Let's do this.